shit is trash, bang this, cause I guarantee that you bought it. Heavy airplay all day with no chorus. I keep it thorough, nigga.
Yo, what's going on YouTube? I love talking about affirmative action. It's a hot topic that a lot of people are passionate about. And I love having conversations with people when they're really passionate about a subject. That's when you really get to, you really know you have somebody's full attention. And that's always great when you're trying to communicate. Okay. What blacks need to understand about affirmative action is that there is a cap on it. So we make up 12%, 13% of the total US population, right? But if we maximized affirmative action to the point where, well, if we make up 13%, then the total amount of blacks in college across the US should equal, right, 13% of whatever the total number is, right? That still wouldn't be good enough, right? And affirmative action isn't going to guarantee that you're going to be over-represented. It's really only going to match, okay, the proportion that your ethnic group makes up in that nation. And what we need is over-representation in terms of college academics. We need it in other places too, but in this one, in this area, we need to be over represented. Now, Asian Americans only make up 4.2% of the US population. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know some people are more inclined when it comes to stats, so please correct me if I'm wrong. And I looked at that, and I looked at the percentage, the demographics of Asian Americans that are going to be in the University of California school system at the beginning of 2009 in the fall. And I'm talking about UCLA and UC Berkeley and UC Davis, and we have some other smaller schools, but they make up the UC system. And I went to a school within that system, and I looked at the demographics, and 36% will be Asian as of fall 2009. So they are 9 times over-represented in terms of their presence just in this one school system alone. And I haven't even looked at the smaller private schools such as USC and Pepperdine and all the other ones, and some of the state levels as well. Right? It's probably the same. So they're able to do a whole lot more. Right? They're able to make up for some of the deficiencies that may have been there. Right? But the problem with affirmative action and blacks relying on it is that even if, like I said before, affirmative action worked in terms of how it's designed, we need to be over-represented in education, just like in pretty much any other field in America, whether it's like a trade or anything. We need to be over-represented, right? And we can't ask affirmative action to do that. See, I think people have this misconception about what affirmative action is supposed to do, right? They're never going to, they can say whatever, they're not going to implement it in such a way that's going to allow another group to be favored. It's just going to promise an equal shot, and to them, equal is like, hey, if you make up a certain percentage of the total U.S. population, then that same number should be, equally present in another smaller population within the grand population. That's how I look at it. Now, you can look at it differently, but that's how I see it. So we need to be over, and I don't think affirmative action will ever do that. right? That's what a lot of smaller, your Asians, your Middle Easterns, your Indians, they are so overrepresented in so many areas that, they're gaining so much wealth. To the point now, when we talk about the recession and whatnot, I'm curious to see how the recession affects some of the other smaller minority groups. I don't really hear too many stories about Asians struggling. Not to say that they're not, but you just don't hear it. I don't see too many, Middle Eastern or Indians, really saying, the recession, we're struggling, right? I see more Asians on my block looking at foreclosed homes than I see anybody else. Right, when we talk about the recession, all we really see are Hispanics, blacks, and certain whites. So what about these other smaller minority groups? Well, they're overrepresented in this area. It is what it is, and because of that, they've increased their chances at making a whole lot of money. They didn't guarantee it, but they've increased the odds that they will make a whole lot more money. And because they are smaller, right, then they can become self-contained. That's the strength of Asian culture. You can break it down in terms of Korean, Japanese. I don't want to offend anybody. I'm just, trying to sum it up here. But, right, that's the strength. The fact that they've increased their odds at making a whole lot of money, and they're relatively small. There's a lot of power in that. As blacks, we want that same feeling, right? We want to be self-sufficient. We want to be contained. We want a buffer zone so we're not so damn reliant on what the government has to say or do, because that's what we pretty much are, right? We're just so reliant on whatever the government does. We can't really buffer and protect ourselves, right? Right. We have no sunblock, so to speak. So we want that, but we're not understanding that affirmative action will only take us so far. It's only going to take us so far. We have to understand that we have to be overrepresented in certain areas. So anyways, take it easy. God bless.